Brexit hindered pandemic response, COVID inquiry told. Yes, that was Hugo Keith KC, who says that the UK's departure from the EU did indeed hinder the pandemic response because they're looking at the preparedness. He said all the activity, time and focus was spent on departing from the EU and not actually dealing with the pandemic. What do you make of that?
Well, I would dispute that. I mean, I think the vaccine rollout was a clear example of how being out of the EU actually helped us.
It's a shocking response to the COVID inquiry hearing that Brexit may be partially to blame for the country's failure to prepare for a pandemic. The claim made by Conservative MP Miriam Cates has been repeatedly made by former Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
But there was another reason why we were able to do that vaccination rollout so fast, and that was because we'd taken back control of our Medical Health Regulation Agency. We were able to license that vaccine to approve it faster than any other European country. Had it not been for our ability to do our own regulation, had it not been for the fact that we come out of the European Medicines Agency and the MHRA, the Medical Health Regulation Agency, was now totally free to decide how fast to approve a vaccine, we wouldn't have been able to do that vaccine rollout so fast. And, you know, it is literally true that Brexit helped save lives.
It's a claim now being made by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in an ever more desperate attempt to identify a benefit of Brexit.
Just remember one thing, Mr. Speaker. We had the fastest vaccine rollout in the world. We had that because of our freedoms after leaving the European Union.
Others have also been quick to jump on the former Prime Minister's bandwagon.
We wouldn't have had the vaccine rollout that was so successful if we'd been within the European Union.
Can you list the Brexit benefits that common people have received so far, and what further benefits will common people receive in the next 12, 18, 24 months?
Well, the British people as a whole have received the advantage of the vaccine, which was a pretty big and early benefit of Brexit.
It is, of course, complete bollocks. Johnson and Sunak both know it, and so do all the Conservative MPs shamelessly repeating it. EU legislation enacted into British law already allow countries to temporarily authorise vaccines without waiting for approval from the European Medicines Agency. In fact, the UK government always made it clear that it could authorise vaccines unilaterally under European law before we left the EU. Don't just take my word for it. Here is the independent fact-checker Full Fact. Under European law, the UK was permitted to act independently to approve the vaccine in an emergency. And here is Channel 4 Fact Check. As a UK government press release from 23rd of November 2020 states, if a suitable COVID-19 vaccine candidate becomes available before the end of the transition period, EU legislation which we have implemented via Regulation 174 of the Human Medicines Regulations allows the MHRA to temporarily authorise the supply of a medicine or vaccine based on public health need. So even if we were still a member of the EU, the UK regulator would have been able to take this decision on its own because EU law already allows it. And if that's not enough for you, here is the actual head of the UK's Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, June Rain.
We appear to be getting authorisation for this vaccine ahead of our friends in Europe. I was just wondering, does the fact that the UK is no longer part of the EU, did that make any difference to the speed with which you were able to complete your authorisation?
We have been able to authorise the supply of this vaccine using provisions under European law which exist until the 1st of January.
So who are we going to believe? Full Fact, Channel 4 Fact Check and the actual head of the MHRA, or Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak? By now even Larry the Cat knows the claim they're making isn't true. Even LBC's Nick Ferrari's caught up.
You say, I'm proud to have got Brexit done. I now look forward to the future to build a truly global Britain. What are the three best achievements since getting Brexit done, would you say, Minister? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Well, I'd say from the start, the biggest impact we've seen over the last couple of years is probably the Britain's ability to fulfil its own vaccine programme.
Well, you'll be aware, of course, the independent website Full Fact say that's not true, and even the boss of our own MHRA, Dr. June Rain, has also said that's not true. So,
well, we could have
can we
done
strike that one out?
You're absolutely right.
Everyone should know this by now. EU legislation enacted into British law already allow countries to temporarily authorise vaccines without waiting for approval from the EMA. In fact, as the Channel 4 fact check pointed out, the UK government itself always made it clear that it could authorise vaccines unilaterally under European law.
So one of my first jobs is to try and restore trust in government. And that starts with being honest with people